Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back to the planet at no cost to you, and there's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement. Only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
The Bachelorette and Friends. From first love to happy ever after.
What's that?
From dating to dick pics.
Oh my. Oh no!
The Bachelorette and Friends. Oh, I love a good dick.
This podcast contains sexual references, coarse language, and adult themes from the beginning and throughout. It is not recommended for listeners under the age of 15.
Hello and welcome to The Bachelorette and Friends. I'm your host, Karla Anita Matiazzo. And this episode has two guests. Award-winning cabaret artist Karla Hillam and award-winning producer Margaret Fisk. Now, these two wonderful ladies are from Melbourne, so we did this over Zoom. This episode, however, starts in the middle of a conversation. For some reason, my Zoom decided to be on the old 40-minute time increment that you were allowed. So we recorded the first session and then we had to pop back in and record the second half of the podcast. And then when we were all done and I started dragging the Zoom files into GarageBand to do an edit, the first half of the Zoom was gone. It vanished. I don't know where it went, tried to find it, couldn't find it. So I'm very, very, very sorry to Karla and Margaret. But you'll still get an excellent episode. These two powerhouse women are not to be missed. On stage and off. So how did you know that you were in a relationship if you actually didn't go on any dates? How did that happen?
So, do you want the G version or the R version?
I do not mind. It's up to you.
Okay. So, what happened was that Trev and I were working together at a pub, actually quite a famous pub in Richmond called the Bridge Hotel, and it was before it was like a fancy pub. It was when it was a disgusting, like rats run over your feet, full of like drugged up Channel 9 cameraman, like proper pub. And I used to live around the corner from the pub with a girl from Wagga, where I'm from. We were housemates and we both got jobs down there, and we used to, you know, it was like a whole crew of kids. We were adults, but we were kids. And we would work the bar. Travis is a chef, so he was in the kitchen, and then we'd all get drunk after work and, you know, have parties and whatever. Anyway, so it was actually it was my 21st. So the girl that I live with and me both had our birthdays in September. And this other guy that worked at the bar who I actually had a crush on, it was his birthday as well.
Yes.
And so we basically were drunk for a whole month. But on my actual 21st birthday, we went for a long lunch and got absolutely wasted. And Travis and I ended up, and this is like testament, right? So I thought I had a crush on the other guy, and I ended up having sex with Travis. And what happened was, so I woke up like at it was dark, but it must have been very like in the morning. Yeah. And I was like, and I was awake and I was like, oh my God, I'm not wearing any clothes. And then I looked over and I was like, oh fuck, Travis is in the bed. Shit. So I got up and like put something on and went to my housemate's room, and I'm like, Kathy, I had sex with Travis. And she was in bed with the guy that I had the crush on. And I was like, this is not okay, but we'll talk about this later. And then, so we had like a little week of like, you know, going out partying and hooking up. And then I must have said to him, oh, like, is this a thing? Do you want to like, you know, be boyfriend and girlfriend? And he was like, yeah, nah, like, I just want to play the field a bit, you know.
Oh,
like, anyone would have been like, you're cracked. I think he was just like aware that I was like a cat that needed to be like, you know, treated with caution. Anyway, but we were very good friends. So we just remained good friends, and we used to hang out a lot. And then the following year I had to move out of that flat, and I was supposed to move in with another girl, but we hadn't found a place to live. Travis's housemate and best mate had moved to Perth. So I was just moving in as a temporary housemate for like 8 weeks or something.
Right.
And then, you know, one thing led to another.
And then
Never moved out.
I never moved out, nah.
So how were you courted, Margaret? Were you courted by your husband?
Oh, no, not really. I hated him at the start because he's 4 years older than me, and we both, in our younger days, used to play basketball, high-level basketball.
Right.
And he wasn't from the location where I grew up from, so he moved into that location, and he was refereeing me. So like, here's this new person that's come on to be a referee on the basketball game, and he fouled me out. You're only allowed 5 fouls, and you get told to leave the court. Well, I'll only ever admit to 4, because the 5th one, I told him so. It wasn't a foul. I didn't hit that girl. If I was going to hit her, you would know I bloody hit her. So he fouled me out, and I was like this. So I had to then sit out for the rest of the game. So that's okay. The following week, oh no, Lordy, we've got the same bloody referee again. I better be on my best behaviour because he won't foul me out. Well, he fouled me out again.
Oh, what the?
And I'm thinking, seriously, this dude. So I started asking around who this person was, and some of my friends were playing. They were representing the place in regional Victoria, and he was in the same team. So they sort of were hanging out with him. They go, oh, no, he's fine, like this. Anyway, just because we were hanging out, he would be hanging out with them because they were new, he was new to the town and everything like that. And so we just sort of all went out, and then it was, I don't know, from there he was umpiring netball as well, and in regional, in country Victoria, same in country South Australia, you have your football and your netball teams. Yeah. And so he would go out, but he said, oh, do you want to come with me? So, jump in the car, and every Saturday morning we'd go out. I'd sit in the car, listen to music. Well, just to get out of the house.
Yes, so dedicated, Marg. I would never do that for a guy.
Yeah.
Ever.
No, it was to get out of the house. So I wanted to get out of the house.
It was like Ryan Reynolds or one of those, Ryan Gosling. I would never sit in a car and wait for an umpire netball.
So, well, as I said, it was to get out of the house. So I got out of the house, and that was fine. And then it just sort of, I don't know. I actually don't know where it transferred from being, then we'd just go for drives to places that I hadn't been. Let's go again, getting out of the house. Let's go drive down, 3 hours away to go and have a look at this nice mountain or whatever. Where do you want to go this weekend? And I don't know where it switched from being just friends to then getting into a relationship. I actually don't know. I can't pinpoint a time when I would then go, and I can't even remember when we first kissed. So, it obviously just sort of
must have been memorable, Margaret. If you
must have been so memorable.
Have you ever had, speaking of kisses, have you ever had experiences where a guy it'll be a first kiss on a date, and a guy will just have to say something and it'll just ruin everything? I'll give you an example. I once went on a date with a guy. It was a second date, and I don't know if it was a mixture of nerves or what for him, but he ruined it immediately by going, oh, can we just get the first kiss over and done with? I was like, nah.
Secondary school, grade 7, so year 7, secondary school. His name was Mark. He had straggly blonde hair, like down, or it wasn't even blonde, it was browny blonde, down to about here.
Yes.
And we were at the school dance, and we were sitting in the dark corner, and he wanted to get the kiss out of the road because he wanted to shove his hand down in my boob. So,
oh, great.
So that was can we just get the kiss out of the road?
Oh, right. So that was the go. Is that what he thought? If I get to kiss her, I get to grab her boob. Oh, okay, cool,
yeah.
Great.
And as quick as we can get the kiss out of the road, I'll get to the bit where I want to get to. So.
Jeez.
I reckon I've been on 3 dates in my whole life.
Really?
Yeah. just goes to show, dates to me are the weirdest thing. And I've been with Travis since I was so young. It was so funny. We were touring, it was probably the same tour. It might have been a different one. I think it might have been running in WA. And one of the girls that tours with us was on Tinder. And she was like, I'll let you like go on my Tinder and choose some guys for me. And I didn't know how to use Tinder.
But that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
Don't know how to use Tinder. I was like, when I was single, there was no Tinder. Like you actually had to go to a bar, and that just shows my age. And like, you know, meet a guy, or like you had to be at a party and friends with someone that you knew. And but I think I've been on 3 dates in my life and none of them were very memorable. And I wouldn't have kissed any of those guys because they were gross. Like, I don't even know why I would have said. I probably just was like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, I'll go on a date.
So for both of you, what do you think stands out as one or two of the most important things to keep a long-term relationship going?
Spend lots of time apart. No, I think communication's pretty important, and you have to like each other because
You have to have separate bank accounts too. Remember?
Oh yeah, what was that? A get out of jail free account?
So is money, I think something that I've worked out is money is a weird conversation to have relationship-wise, because I feel like the emotions and money get all wrapped up together rather than being able to separately look at money as just money and numbers, rather than it being involved in the value of the relationship, if that makes any sense.
But that's how it's been. Like, you know, like, I mean, I'm considerably older than you guys, so it's been like the male has always been the main breadwinner, and therefore by having the most money, they have the power to then control where that money goes because it's their money,
right?
And you know, and that's just how, like, sort of certainly for a lot of generations, that's how it's been. Of course, then that just flows on, you know, from generation to generation to generation to generation, unless you sort of stop it. I mean, you know, my mum used to take the money off my dad, so that was totally, so we didn't grow up with my dad having the power of the money. My mum had the power of the money.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And you know, that's sort of unheard of for their generation, certainly. So I think it is the money thing, and I think, you know, some guys are very threatened when you earn more money than what they earn, because they're tied up into, well, they're supposed to be the protector and the breadwinner, and therefore if they're not earning as much money as their spouse, then they're worthless. You know, I think that's what plays in their mind.
Like every week Travis asks me when he's going to be able to retire because I'm going to be the sole breadwinner. So I think generationally it's quite different. For us, like, obviously, because of like the way that the world works, Travis does earn more money than me. But we're fortunate that I grew up in a family where both my parents worked, and so even though I probably didn't understand that one earned more than the other or whatever, it was always about the team of the money. And for me, the biggest thing that I learned with my partner is that he needs to have certain amount of savings to feel financially secure, and he feels safe with that, whereas I'm a bit more like footloose and fancy free. And then once we sort of figured that out, then it was like, oh, right, so this is because you're feeling unsafe at the moment, but if we, you know, work things this way, then, you know, happy days. So and also we're a team, and the way that we manage our money is
great.
We do have all our money together, and so it's, you know, but I do also think it's important for every woman to have their own bank account with their own money in it, which because I've just seen too many times where I've had friends that have had relationships fall apart, and they've been financially destitute. And I just would hate to see that happen to anyone else, just because, you know, because of the way that the dynamic of the relationship was with money, that they didn't have control over the finances. And so I think it's, understanding how people, their relationship to money.
With money,
because everybody has a different relationship.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
a lot of people of my generation, I think, have a weird... I've talked about it with one of my girlfriends about how we have this real guilt about spending money, because we grew up in a time where your parents would be like, we can't have that because we can't afford it, or this or that, like very middle class. And so you have like this weird guilt sometimes when you spend money, and then like, but also in the same token, we're lucky that we have money. So
yes,
like it's there. You can have
And
the
then-
things that you want and feel safe.
Yeah, exactly. And then the whole dynamic, I would imagine, with finances changes once kids come into the picture. I've heard friends of mine say when they start to have kids and they're so used to having a 2-income household, then going from, you know, that traditional sense in regard to then the man's the only one earning for maybe 3 to 6 months or a year if you're lucky and can afford to have one income for the first year of the baby's life, like then that dynamic changes. That completely changes again. So having, you know, those savings sitting there is a good idea in theory, but obviously, you know, especially with performing arts at the moment, like savings are all gone for a lot of artists. They've had to just chew through their savings to survive, really.
Yeah. And you're right, you know, sort of as soon as kids come along, everything changes. You know, I was teaching when I first, you know, previous life, I was teaching when my first child came.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we had just bought a house and everything, but we were also very mindful that if we were going to have a family, that we would go from a 2-income down to a 1-income. So just thinking ahead, it was like, well, you know, when we go to the bank to get the loan out, we're only going to base it on 1 income. And then if I then went back to work, then that was like, spending money, you know, that we could then just use. But we were going to go from a 2-income family with a home loan down to a 1-income family with the same home loan, which then would have, you know, we would have struggled. So it does, you know, and look, I stopped working then. I had 7 years family leave that I could use for teaching, you know, for teaching, and I never went back to teaching. And our life completely changed because our second child has got severe disability. So I never went back to work, and I haven't physically earned an income for 30 years.
Wow.
So we've gone from a 2-income family down to a 1-income family, and then stayed as a 1-income family and had to adjust in all of that. So you know, and you know, like, you know, what's a tax return? I don't earn enough money to put a tax return in, you know. So so that's the thing, it is, and it just changed the dynamic in the way that your relationship, as Karla was saying, your relationship with money, because then you've only got 1 income, and it's not like, well, I just want to duck out and buy all these things, because there's bigger implications in doing so. Yeah.
Bigger picture than just yourself as an individual. Yeah. Are there any takeaways that you'd both like to give the listener before I love and leave you both?
Well, if you're interested in relationships, I think you're probably going to be pretty interested in our show, because it's literally about this woman's life and the relationships that she's been through. And they're not all healthy. But I think what's interesting is her perspective on the relationships and what she took away from them, but also what she had to contribute to them. So it's kind of interesting to chat about all this relationship stuff, because in Sex, Lies and Betrayal, it's literally all about relationships and how she lived her life. So come and see our show.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. And it is. It's, you know, like I you know, she had to put up with you know, we're talking right at the start about, you know, what happened with the Queensland Premier, and our 1940s Hollywood star had to deal with all of that. And, and it still happens today, doesn't it? Like you sort of think we should have moved on and everything else. And so, it goes through some of that she had to deal with and what she had to do to actually just survive there and some of the choices that she had to make. And, we all have regrets and sometimes you just have to move on from those. You can't dwell on them. But she's a gutsy lady and she sort of triumphs in the end. She does sort of, beat that Hollywood, the Hollywood system on her own terms. So,
And it's interesting how, and a little bit sad, that those stories still resonate so much with women today because, as we know, right now, today, like you mentioned before, the Queensland Premier being scolded like a naughty little girl at a press conference for the Olympics. It is a shame that narrative is still so very much there.
Well, it's just ironic too because they've just that show's just come out on the ABC, Misrepresented, which is about.
I love it. It's so good, so good.
Yeah. And I don't know how much longer we can live in a country that has leaders that are so tone deaf to what the public and 50% of the country experiences.
Mm-hmm. But it's everywhere, Karla. It's everywhere. It's not just in Parliament. It is everywhere.
Talking to some friends the other day about I've got some very lovely colleagues that I've known for many, many years, and often I would just wear flat shoes when I was around them, and then sometimes I would wear heels, and I'm the sort of person that in heels I look tall. And I was sort of like eye level with these guys, and they were quite intimidated with having me at eye level. And I'm a very direct person anyway, not in any way aggressive, but just
direct doesn't mean aggressive.
Very direct.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And these are people that know and like me, but they were really struggling with me being at eye level with them. And I was like, oh, wow.
We're still here. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing. And can I just say it's not just white privileged men. I've experienced that with a number of other races as well. So we could always go, because we're talking about obviously the Olympic guy and people in politics where the white privilege. So I've experienced that with other cultures as well. It's just like you're the little woman and we are more superior. And I'm sure if you look in the Bible, I'm not a religious person, but I'm sure Adam and Eve were made equal, weren't they? I don't know.
I got no idea.
I don't know.
I don't know enough. I don't know.
I refuse to go to scripture even, so I'm not the person to ask.
No, me neither. But, this is the thing, and I mean, there's just still so much work to do right across everything. Like I was telling Karla that even as a producer, I also stage manage our shows when we go around. Mm-hmm. So when I first started touring, which is way back 2014, when we started touring with JTM Productions, you'd walk in as a stage manager and you'd be talking to the tech crew and they would be talking down to you. And you say, hang on, this is my show. This is what I want. I know what I want. You can't tell me what I think I want for my show. So I then switched it across and decided I would introduce myself as the producer. And lo and behold, the whole attitude of those guys, and they're all predominantly guys backstage, completely changed because he was the producer now saying what they wanted. It didn't matter if she's male or female, as compared to the little lady that just walks in that's going to stage manage the show. So, it's the same person. I'm the same person, but it's just how they treat you differently. So, yeah.
There's no more room anymore for any of this stuff. There's just no more, I don't have, watching the Misrepresented, because I'm watching it at the moment. I think I'm up to the second to last episode, but watching it, so much of it makes me furious that the narrative is still exactly the same. It just may be more subtle in the way that things are like that dudes are approaching their misogyny or their attitudes towards women, or they try and hide behind, oh no, I was just joking, or they're just completely out of touch. There's just no more room anymore. I think we're all just over it. Just, you know, there's so many things in this country that we need to do better. We need to do better. There's so much stuff we need to do better.
Yeah, and the problem is what can we do? You know, you've got people in power like the people that were in that show, and they've experienced it, and they're all very, very strong women. Yes. You know, very strong women. And I don't know what the answer is. You know, we could all march down the streets and everybody will support, but you know, is it going to make a difference? I don't know what the answer is. It's still going to. I think it's still going to take another 20 years until we get the new generation through, like you guys, through to those positions, and then we can have a big cultural change. That's what I'm hoping, anyway.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's been brilliant. I've loved your insights. I've loved your life experience. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks for having us. We can't wait to see your show, Karla and Karla.
Yeah, Karla and Karla.
We should do some cross-promotional stuff to really confuse people, Karla. Yeah.
Well, both shows are about love, aren't they? Really?
They are. This is true. We should do some cross-promo. Thank you, ladies. This has been brilliant. Have a great day.
Thanks, Karla. Bye.
See you, Karla. Bye.
The Catchalorette with friends near and far, from heartache to catfish and sex toys. The Catchalorette and friends. See you next time if you dare.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the planet checking account. It gives back to the planet at no cost to you, and there's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement. Only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.